Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going through a full day in the life of a helicopter EMS pilot, what it's actually like on the job, what a full day looks like. Quick note before we get started, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to film at work. That is a work in progress, and maybe one day that will change and I can get you some content. I can't currently do that, but I still wanted to share a full day, like behind the scenes, what it actually looks like. Nonetheless, it will be super fun and informative. Let's get into it. In this video, we're going to break down a day shift. Night shifts are a little bit different, and maybe I'll do a video on that, but we are going to do a day shift. Now, a day shift for me runs 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. We work 12-hour shifts, and we work 7 days straight. We start our work week on Monday, and we end Sunday. So by the end of that stretch, you definitely start to feel it. It's been a long week. My day usually starts at around 5 a.m. I go to the gym before work. Getting a workout in for me is like really critical. It is critical to clear my mind, to get my muscles moving, to get the body flowing. So I go to the gym, and then I usually head into work. I arrive at work at like 6:30 to 6:40-ish, like 20 to 30 minutes before work starts. When I walk in, the first thing I do is I head to the pilot office and I meet with the off-going pilot for a conversation. Now, it's not super formal, but it's kind of just a conversation. What we talk about is what calls they had, what missions they flew, if they did any, how the weather was overnight, how the aircraft performed, if there were any issues, any maintenance items that came up. We talk about how many hours are left on the helicopter before the next maintenance items or the next maintenance inspections, anything that's coming soon. After the rundown, we do a physical handoff of duties. This is kind of fun. I don't know if other bases do this, but this is what my base does. We say, you have the controls, and then I will say, I have the controls. We have a pilot phone that the pilots hand off to each other when they're leaving. So if I was the off-going pilot, I would say, you have the controls, and hand him the phone. And then if I was taking the phone, I would say, I have the controls, and I would take the phone. It's kind of fun. It's just how we hand off the pilot phone, and it's important because it's like a physical, clear change of duties. It is us physically handing off the helicopter and the job to the next pilot. So it's kind of fun. We just do that. The next thing I do is I suit up. I throw my flight suit on. I'll throw my boots on. Then I walk out to the hangar. I put my helmet in the aircraft. Any personal gear that I have, I'll throw that in the aircraft. I'll adjust the seat to how I want it. I'll adjust the pedals so they're at the right distance, exactly how I like them. And then I'll go back inside, and that's when we do the crew briefing. I'll grab the nurse, the paramedic, we'll grab our coffee, and we go sit down in the living room. I plug my computer into the TV, and we go through a weather briefing. I'll go through the GFA tool, which is previously known as the HEMS tool, and then we'll go through all the METARs, the TAFs. We'll look at the weather for our service area. We'll kind of zoom out to the region, the nation, kind of see what weather patterns are happening, go through all the different weather tools. Then we check NOTAMs, TFRs, so we look at all the weather. And then I'll plug in the iPad, the duty iPad, and we'll go through a weight and balance. So I'll put in everyone's position, where they're sitting in the helicopter, and the amount of fuel we have. The reason why we do this is we want to know how big of a patient we can take. Sometimes there's a scene call. If there's a local scene call, they will literally drive the ambulance to the base, and we have to take off from the base. So we need to know what is the largest patient that we can take at our current weight. So we look at that number. Finally, during that crew briefing, we just cover any operational or emergency things. So we have a list of daily topics that we talk about, emergencies, operational things, and we just kind of brief these things and just have a conversation about that. After that, we all sign a logbook stating that we briefed. It is just stating that we went through the briefing. After that, I head outside, and that's when I do my pre-flight. I throw some gloves on, I grab my flashlight and a ladder, and then we go through the helicopter. The first thing that I typically do, I'm not going to walk you through a full pre-flight, but the first thing I'm looking for is fuel on board, making sure that the helicopter is fueled to the right number. We always start with the right amount of fuel on board. And then secondly, I'm checking to see if there were any exceedances. So we have an exceedance page, and it logs all of the aircraft exceedances. I want to make sure that there were no exceedances by the previous pilot. So I check those two things, and then I'll turn all the lights on, all the switches for all the lights, and then I'll do a 360. I'll walk around the helicopter, just check all the lights, and then just do like an initial size up of the helicopter, making sure everything's there, everything looks good. And then I go through the actual helicopter. I open every compartment, every cover. I check all the bolts, all the torque stripes, any new leaks, a standard pre-flight. All you pilots out there know a standard pre-flight. My pre-flight takes me about 30 minutes. Maybe that's a bit long, but I take it quite seriously. It's very important to me. And then 9 a.m. we have a daily company-wide meeting. So it's all of the managers, all of the bases, all the operations teams. We all jump on a Zoom call. Communication center typically leads it. They ask us, all the bases, what our operational status is, how the weather is, and then all the department heads chime in with any operational concerns so that we're all kind of on the same page, that we're all kind of tracking the same events. And then we kind of settle into the hurry up and wait, just like any EMS job. So when we come in from 7 till 9, it's usually pretty chaotic. There's a lot going on. After the 9 a.m. meeting, we're just hanging out. This is the time I'll usually like make some breakfast, I'll call my wife, and then I'll go into the office, I'll check any emails that we have, any emails that I need to personally respond to. If there's any trainings, I'll get on the computer and do some trainings, any paperwork that I have to do. After that, if we haven't gotten any calls, I'll go into the hangar, I'll throw my AirPods in, and I'll just start walking around the hangar. I listen to podcasts, listen to the news, and I just kind of hang out and wait. But let's talk about early morning calls. If a call comes in before 10 a.m., in almost every case, it is a scene call and it is a motor vehicle accident, car accident, motorcycle accident, farm injuries. 7 times out of 10, in my experience, if the tones go off early, it's going to be a chaotic scene call. When the tones go off on the overhead speaker, they blast the call and they will either say scene standby, scene launch, or inter-facility standby or inter-facility launch. If it's a scene, they will give the county, the magnetic heading, and the distance and the run number. So for example, this is what it would sound like. Scene launch in Jefferson County, 290 for 27 nautical miles, run number 252207. So let me break this down. This is our company specific one, but let me just explain what this means. So scene launch is the first, and scene, it's not an inter-facility, so it's a scene, and it's a launch. You can either get a launch or a standby. The standby is just kind of a heads up that maybe you're gonna go. A launch is like, nope, they're ready for you now. Then they'll give the county, so Jefferson County, so you know all of the local counties, so you know approximately where you're going. And then they'll give the magnetic heading and the distance. So from our base, they will say the heading, so it's 290, okay, so this is a westerly call, I'm going west, and then they'll give the distance, 27 nautical miles. So this gives me a pretty good mental picture of what's going on. And then at our company, we use what are called run numbers. Run numbers state the year is the first 2 digits, so this is 2025, and then 2207, I just came up with that number, but this is a run number. We use this as pilots for our FRATs, all of our documentation, our flight tracking, but the clinical side, they also use this exact same run number for all their charting and their documentation, so that's why we have it. So maybe a little bit in depth, but those are the numbers we get. When I get a scene call, I typically get a little bit more excited. Scene calls are fun for me. They're dynamic. You're landing off airport typically, and you have to be sharp. In inter-facility, I am always listening. If it's an inter-facility call, they'll say inter-facility launch from this hospital to this hospital and then they'll say the run number. So I am always listening for where the pickup hospital is and where the drop-off hospital is, because sometimes you'll get these long flights, and when you're just listening to that page, you're like, where am I going? Where am I going? You just want to know. So those are the things I'm always listening for. But as soon as the page goes off or the overhead sound goes off, I walk to the pilot office and I pull up the weather. Now, throughout the day, I'm already mentally tracking the weather. I know what it's trending to. Usually when a call comes in, I know pretty much right away if it's going to be a go or a no-go, but we always check the weather. But I am tracking it throughout the day, so if the weather's good, I know, like, okay, we're probably going to go. If it's bad, we're probably not going to go. If the weather is bad, I call the comm center and I decline it and I fill out a FRAT. If the weather is good, I call the comm center back and I accept the flight, and then I fill out our flight risk assessment tool. This is also called a FRAT, but it's a flight risk assessment tool. It's basically a survey or a questionnaire, and it's asking about different risk metrics. So it asks about like my personal fatigue, familiarity with the area, what the weather conditions are, have there been any prior declines by other helicopters, all the different weather conditions, and then it's going to spit out a number. If it's low, we can just go. If it's medium, we have to get like someone else involved, some other pilots, operational control. And if it's too high, we just cancel. It's as simple as that. While I'm doing that, the crew is pulling the helicopter out. So as soon as the call comes in, I go to the office and I start doing my FRAT and my weather, and I'm looking at that. The crew has all their stuff and they go and pull the helicopter out. Now for us specifically at my operation, if it's between 40 and 80 degrees, we stage the helicopter outside. But if it is hotter than 80 degrees or if it's below 40 degrees, we keep the helicopter inside. So if the helicopter's already staged outside, that's easy. But if it's staged inside, they go open the hangar doors, pull the helicopter out. After I've done my FRAT, and if we have accepted it, I walk out to the aircraft. I'll do a quick 360, make sure everything's buttoned up, all the panels are closed. The crew is also doing that, but I do it myself. I double check that. Put my earplugs in, put my helmet on, mount my iPad to the mount, and do all of my checks. Now we do the pre-startup checks, the system checks. What I personally do is I do the do then verify system checks, and I use a flow. So we have a set flow. So I go and I've got it all memorized in my head, and it's like 99% good, and I 99% of the times go through it without missing anything. But then that's why you have the do then verify, and then I back up with the checklist. So you can get the helicopter started really quickly and efficiently by memorization, and then you verify that you have all the systems on, you've done all your systems checks. So that's what I'll do. And then before takeoff, we do a final crew challenge and response. So they'll ask me a question and I respond. So for example, they will say throttle at fly, and I will say check. All systems on, check. Doors closed, check. All gear secured, check. That's not exactly it, but that's essentially it. It's a challenge and then a response. So it's us talking together. Then I ask the crew if they are ready and comfortable. I will specifically ask them personally any reason why we should not take this flight. So I will ask each crew member, the paramedic and the nurse, by name, and I will be like, Sarah, any reason why we should not take this flight? No. And then I will say, Brian, any reason why we should not take this flight? No. And if there's no hesitations, then we go. If there's any hesitations, then we don't go. 3 to go, 1 to say no. I've never had that happen before, because by the time you get to that point, crews have typically told you they don't want to go, but that's also never happened. I do it nonetheless to give as many outs as my crew needs if they want to go. So if there's no reason stated, then I do my aircraft clearing. This is something I personally do. I will say clear right, clear left, clear above. It's not necessarily a policy, but you should always do that. But I like to make sure that we're clear right, clear left, clear above. You don't want to go up into anything, and I physically look around, and then we pick up. Well, another thing that I personally do is as I fly, I articulate every single thing I am doing. Not every pilot does this, and it's not necessarily a company procedure, but someone told me to do this before I got into this industry, before I got into helicopter ambulance, and I'm really glad they told me this, but it just increases my confidence and crew confidence so much. So essentially what I do is I articulate every single thing I'm doing. So if I'm doing a pedal turn, I will say nose right, tail left. So for you guys like this, I will say nose right, tail left if I'm going to do a pedal turn. So they know what the helicopter's going to do. Or I will say nose left, tail right, nose left, tail right. Or if I'm flying, I'm going to be like, all right, we're turning right. So then I'm turning right. Or if I'm turning left, I'm turning left. I articulate everything I'm doing. There's a couple reasons I do this. I don't want them to be scared. I don't want them to like have unexpected movements of the helicopter. But if I was a clinical crew member, I would appreciate my pilot doing this. I would appreciate my pilot articulating what they're gonna do. So I do that. The first thing I do when I pick up into a 5-foot hover, and I check all my temperatures and pressures. So I will literally pick up 5-foot hover. This is a company procedure. 5-foot hover. T's and P's are in the green. Temperatures and pressures are in the green. I'll make sure that my controls feel good. I'll do like a little shimmy and just make sure everything feels good while I'm in that 5-foot hover. If everything feels good and temperatures and pressures look good. All right, then we take off. Obviously talk to air traffic control, but then we take off. Once we're airborne, the clinical crews call the comm center. They do the communication with the comm center. I do my communication with air traffic control. So if we're going to a scene, they will get the information from the comm center. What is the call? What is the patient info? Scene details? Are there any other aircraft responding? Who is our ground contact? What radio channel are we going to reach out to our ground contact on? Meanwhile, I am focused on aviating, navigating, and communicating, talking to air traffic control. And then once we get to our scene, I will enter a right-hand orbit. So I'm in the pilot seat, front right seat. The aircraft I fly is front right seat. So if this is our scene, I will enter a right-hand orbit and I'll start doing a right-hand orbit. Now for a scene call, I typically do at minimum 2 orbits or more. You know, you could do as many as you need to establish all your variables. But I do typically at minimum 2 orbits. The things I'm looking for: wind direction, terrain, obstacles, forced landing, entry path, exit path. I'm looking for FOD. I'm looking for people running across my landing zone. I'm looking for where I can bail, my go-around options, engine failure. So I'm establishing all those. Once I'm comfortable with that, if this is my scene, I'll extend out on a downwind, turn base and final, and then I'll come in. Real slow approach. No more than 300 feet per minute. It's extremely slow. The slower you are, you can see things, you can respond faster, so I'm just real slow. I mean, it just feels real slow. It's not that slow, but then we come in just like that, just normal. If I'm going to a hospital, typically it's a little bit faster. I will still enter a right-hand orbit, but if I'm going to like an established landing zone, it's much easier to find winds because there's typically a windsock at every hospital. FOD is easier to find. I'm pretty comfortable and familiar with my obstacles around the local area for all the local hospitals. Same thing, I'll come in on final, 300 foot per minute approach, come in, but hospitals are typically a little bit easier. And then when we come down, we have 2 options. We'll talk about it as a crew and determine like the severity. We can either stay hot if we think it's gonna be like a fast load on a scene. If we go to a hospital, we're always shutting down because it's a long process, but we can either do a hot load or a cold load. We'll talk about it as a crew and kind of figure out what we're gonna do. If it's a hot load, I'll just stay hot, holding all the controls, watching my scene. I'm watching for firefighters, police officers, EMS personnel, FOD, just random people running in. So I'm just like hyper aware, hyper cognizant of what's going on. If it's a cold load, if we're shutting down, okay, then it's really easy. I just shut down and go into the hospital sometimes, go use the bathroom, or I'll just wait out at the helicopter. And then I just wait. Once they have the patient, either from the scene or the sending hospital, they'll load them up. If they need help, I'll help them. Sometimes there's a bigger patient and they have a lot of gear or drips or medicines, so I'll help them load. Or sometimes they don't need help, and then we all load into the helicopter, and then we go to the hospital. If it's in a facility, we're going to a hospital. If it's a scene, we're going to a hospital. So we fly to the hospital. We always shut down on top of the hospital. I'll shut down. I'll give them a hand if they need a hand. Typically when I'm up top, I'll do some paperwork. If I have some time, I'll just get the paperwork process started. That'll help me later on once I get back to base. And then the crew comes back, loads up the helicopter with all the gear, and then we head home. I will say this, like in a facility, this doesn't typically happen, but on a scene call, if it was a really bad scene call, like a really bad scene call, I won't talk about some of the bad ones, but there's a vibe change. We are all hot and working hard and on our way to the hospital, but like if you just had like a really bad scene call, the vibe in the helicopter is way different on the way home. Once you've left the trauma center and you're going home, it's like, it's quiet. There's no jokes. There's no fun weekend plans. There's no nothing. It is during this time that I'm flying back, that I'm thinking about that family. Whenever we land, if it's a scene call and it's really bad, I always say a prayer for the person and their family, because they just had they're in a really bad situation. So I say a prayer up there. I'll say a prayer while we're flying back, but that flight back sometimes is like really quiet, and it's just an interesting vibe. I mean, we're all on our A game. We're still like flying an aircraft, and we're still CRM, crew resource management, but sometimes there are just bad ones. So I don't know, that's just part of it. I just wanted to share that. Then once we get back to base after the flight, I refuel the helicopter. It's my job to refuel the helicopter. Some bases, you know, you've got a fuel tank right there. Some bases have a fuel truck, so you'll fuel up the helicopter. at my company, I don't know how other companies work. This is the only helicopter air ambulance company I've worked at, but it is the pilot's responsibility to refill the oxygen. So if we use oxygen on the flight, the pilot refills the oxygen, the onboard oxygen if it's needed. So I'll refill the oxygen. And then if it was like a really intense flight and there's a lot of aircraft contamination, we will go decon the helicopter. We do this as a crew. If there's a lot of bodily fluids, that's part of the job. That's part of the job. I mean, I guess some pilots don't necessarily need to do it, but I always help my crew throw on gloves, throw on the PPE, and we'll decon the helicopter, you know? That's just part of the job, interesting part. So we'll do that, and then we'll go inside. The crew they have a lot to do. They have to do all their charting. That takes a long time. They have to restock if they used all that stuff. I have to do a lot of paperwork. It's not the same amount of paperwork as the medical crew, but there's a lot of paperwork. There's multiple different things you got to fill out, and then you got to go put that on the computer. So I don't know, maybe it takes me 30 minutes post-flight to get all the data inputted and fill out all the paperwork. And then we just sit and hang out. Typically after that, once they've done all their charting, we'll debrief. If it was like a regular flight, nothing abnormal happened, it's pretty quick, just like, hey, that was pretty good. And sometimes it's like really just as simple as that. Sometimes there's more. If things went wrong, or if it was really intense, or there's just like a lot more to talk about, sometimes a debrief will go for an hour or two. We'll just really just be talking about the call, and I'll listen to their conversation about the medical stuff, and I'll talk about like any aviation related things. So sometimes debriefs go fast, sometimes debriefs take longer. But then we just hang out. From 2 to 4 p.m. at my company, we have do not disturb time. So from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., it goes quiet, TVs go off, the lights are turned off. We have red do not disturb lights that go on throughout the base, and everyone goes to their room, and it's just quiet time. You don't have to nap. You can. We all have individual offices and bedrooms with beds. You can nap if you want, but from 2 to 4 p.m., it is just quiet time. We all take it really seriously, and I really enjoy that time. I enjoy just like a little 2-hour block in the middle of the day just to be quiet and rest. It's nice. It's nice. Some days, but I mean, obviously during that time, we are like able to take missions. If calls come in, okay, we're going, here we go. But we just rest during that time, and I really enjoy it. Some days you have back to back to back. You'll come in at 7 a.m. and you'll go do 3 missions, and 3 missions takes like almost the full day. You can do 4, you can do 5, but that's a lot. 3 missions takes the full day. Some days you're waiting until like 4 p.m. and then you get a quick scene call and you just knock it out. I don't know. It's kind of like a firehouse, you know? We sit, we eat together, we watch movies, we hang out, and we wait for calls. When calls come in, then we go. We're like on it, you gotta go. But then if no calls come in, you're kind of just hanging out all day. One fun thing about living in upstate New York that I have to deal with is part of my job responsibilities is to plow, and I love it. I love plowing snow, and maybe that's just like the dad in me now, but I love plowing snow. So we have a tractor, and up here in upstate New York, we had a crazy winter, so I would just spend, obviously we're not flying, but you just have to plow because you would get feet and feet and feet and feet and feet of snow stacked up. So you got to keep up with that. So that's part of my job duties. I'll get my steps in, and we just kind of hang out. And if we fly, we fly. If we don't, we just watch Netflix, we take naps. It's a great job. That's my day. When at 7 p.m. Or typically a little bit before that, like 6:30, 6:40, the oncoming pilot shows up, and we do that same handover. What missions did we fly? What flights did we take? What calls came in? One thing to note is sometimes if the weather is bad during the day or the night, whatever, the pilot will decline it and tell the comm center to do a recheck when the next pilot comes on. So like if I was the day pilot, if there was like a call that came in on the night shift, like at 2 a.m. or whatever, they will say, I'm declining for weather conditions, blah, 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 because it's not safe. But check it at 7 a.m. So when I'll come in at 7 a.m., sometimes there is a couple weather rechecks that I got to do, a couple pending flights. So sometimes you can take those right away. Sometimes you don't, or whatever, but that is something that happens. So when the oncoming pilot comes in at 7 p.m., maybe I tell them there's a couple pending flights for you. I'll walk him through what those him or her, what those requests were, what those missions are. I'll talk them through what the helicopter, if we flew today, how the helicopter flew. Same things we did when I was coming on this ship. Then we do the ceremonial, you have controls, I have controls, and then I walk out, and it feels amazing. No more pilot phone, no more operational responsibility, And on day shifts, I sleep good because I started my day at 5 a.m., worked out, and then had a full day. And then I'm leaving at 7, get home at 7:30, 7:40, whatever. And then hang out with my family for a little bit and then go to sleep. And I sleep good and I love it. I sleep good, I recharge, and then I go in for the next day. To be honest, I don't find it exhausting. The day shifts are one of my favorites. It's a great day. 7 days is kind of long, but doesn't really bother me. Some people maybe find it more exhausting, but for me, it's like a rhythm, and I just love it. There's hard days, there's heartbreaking calls, but 90% of the time, it's the best job I've ever had. EMS flying is like a weird blend of 90% boredom, 10% chaos, and you have to be perfect at both. When it's boring, you have to stay sharp. When it's chaotic, you have to be calm. And if you're thinking about this career path, no, it's not about the adrenaline rush. That is only 10% of the job. It's not about being a hero. It's all about being professional, being a skilled aviator, not getting yourself into a situation that you shouldn't, looking at situations objectively, respect for the mission, respect for your crew, respect for the danger that you're operating in and the danger that you're putting your crew and your patient in. So just having a full sense of the responsibility. That's why pilots are, I mean, no, you're not paid as well as like an airline pilot, but helicopter air ambulance pilots are compensated well because you need to be professional. You need to act and make the correct decisions when the time counts. So there you go. That is a day in the life of a helicopter air ambulance pilot. No, I can't film out on the job right now. Like I said, working on it. Hopefully that will come at some point, but this is what my day looks like on a day shift as a helicopter EMS pilot. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about this job? Would you like to do it? Would you not like to do it? Do you have any questions that I didn't answer? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.